And we're kicking off today with AEW Dynamite, as during last week's show, the finish of the Jon Moxley-Rey Fenix match suffered a serious botch when the referee did not count what was a clear 3 count. Moxley had suffered a concussion before the match began, and an audible was called to end the bout with Fenix getting the win, but Knox, not knowing the change, stopped his count when he shouldn't. After a second sit-out piledriver by Fenix, Knox would count the pin, and Fightful Select reports that the AEW official, well generally liked, has severe hate backstage. It was noted that this type of incident has happened with him in the past, which has made the heat against him even worse, but it is not publicly known if his career with the company is in jeopardy. What we do know is that Moxley, at this time, will not be competing at this weekend's WrestleDream event, and BodySlam.net reports that New Japan's Tom Lawler was going to be his opponent. The report did state that should Moxley get cleared in time, the match will be back on, but it will ultimately be decided by the former world champion's condition and his health. On Twitter, Tony Khan confirmed that Moxley was injured during the Grand Slam Dynamite before announcing that Fenix would defend his newly won international title on this week's show. Fenix's open challenge was answered by Jeff Jarrett, who walked into Dynamite looking to turn things around, as his last win was a month and a half ago when he beat Jeff Hardy in the Texas Chainsaw Death Match. Despite Jarrett's best efforts, as well as the efforts of his goons Satnam Singh, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and Karen Jarrett, Fenix was able to best the veteran, getting a small package cradle pin to mark his first successful title defense. It wasn't just Jarrett who had allies, as Aubrey Edwards shoved Karen Jarrett to the floor during a heated moment between the two during the match, which was a somewhat overbooked mess. The match was the definition of two wrestlers being on different pages, and it showed, as did hints of a potential knee injury suffered by the champion, which would explain the pair not being on the same page. This win over Jarrett was a showcase for Fenix as international champion, but not a particularly effective one, nor did it serve as a particularly great way to kick off the show. A blind eliminator 3-way match took place between Nick Jackson and Brian Cage and Claudio Castagnoli tonight, with the winner being Rey Fenix's next challenger. It was Jackson who got the win, securing a shot against Fenix on next week's 4th anniversary of Dynamite in what will hopefully be a better gelling match than what we got this week. Dynamite also saw an update on Adam Cole, as the ROH World Tag Team Champion revealed the severity of its ankle injury suffered during last week's Dynamite. Cole came out last week to help MJF in his title match with Samoa Joe, and on this week's show, the Panama City Playboy came out with his foot wrapped up and was using crutches. Cole said he's broke his ankle in 3 places and has torn some ligaments, which will require surgery, and volunteered to relinquish the ROH World Tag Team titles. Cole's girlfriend Britt Baker would take to Twitter to share some gruesome photos of the injury, including an x-ray which shows the damage caused to his ankle by a freak accident. Back at Dynamite, news of Cole's injury was met with groans by fans who were bummed out to see his run with MJF cut short, and MJF himself was no fan of giving up their ROH gold. Rather than vacate the titles, MJF vowed to defend against the Righteous at WrestleDream all by himself, and MJF's AEW World title could soon be around the waist of Jay White. After interrupting the segment and being torn into by MJF, White said that he's been taunting the devil from afar, but is now ready to take what's his, the AEW World title. MJF warned White that when you come for the king, you better not miss, and accused the Kiwi wrestler of having mid-mic skills. The write-off of Cole as he went to assist a pleading Roderick Strong and segue into the MJF White feud was well done, and made this a far better segment than it had the potential to be. MJF vs. White is going to be great if and when it takes place, and this will allow MJF the chance to work with White's allies such as Juice Robinson, which will no doubt be also excellent. As for Better Than You, baby, they are still friends, but with Cole's injury, don't expect any tag matches from the ROH World Tag Team Champions for some time. Yesterday we reported on Roman Reigns' return to WWE, as it's been announced that the Tribal Chief will be on the October 13th episode of WWE SmackDown. It turns out that this show will just be the kickoff for a return by the Tribal Chief, as 2 more shows have been confirmed for his schedule. In addition to the October 13th SmackDown, Reigns will defend his undisputed WWE Universal Championship in an October 14th live event where he'll face Sami Zayn in Kansas City, Missouri. Reigns is also being advertised for the October 27th episode of SmackDown in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and is also expected to compete at the Crown Jewel Premium Live event the next month in Riyadh. Local advertisements for the Riyadh season have said Reigns will be in action at the event, so fans will be getting to see much more of the Tribal Chief than usual in the next couple of months. We've got some unfortunate news to report now, as former WWE superstar Afa Anoa'i Jr. is dealing with some very serious health issues. According to a GoFundMe, Afa has been in a hospital since September 23rd and is fighting for his life against cardiological issues, with his heart injection fraction only working at 35%. The GoFundMe is hoping to raise $100,000 to help pay for Afa's medical expenses, and fans may remember him for his time with Legacy as Manu in the late 2000s. It's been years since Afa last appeared on WWE TV, but he has kept up with the product as he often comments on the Bloodline storyline and was on an episode of Hidden Treasures on A&E. At the beginning of this year, Afa said that WWE had been calling him and even stopped by his training school to film footage of him, and has said that he is trying to get back on WWE's radar. Afa feels his first WWE run didn't go how he wanted it to, and hopes to get a second chance one day, but for now, he is sidelined with these health issues, and we're wishing him the best. Back to Dynamite, which also saw the return of Paul Wight's Captain Insano character, who proved to be the catch of the day during a segment with MJF and Adam Cole fishing as Boat Bros. The segment also saw MJF tease turning on Cole now that Adam has another friend, before the ex-NXT champion said it's okay to have more than one friend, a lesson MJF is seemingly still learning. For some time, Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page have been building expectations for their upcoming showdown at WrestleDream, which was made official last night. A contract signing had been promoted for the show, leaving fans excited to see what the pair would do next, but this segment was simply a disappointment. The two men appeared to be telling different stories from the get-go, and Page had to tie everything together in a noticeable way before the red-hot conclusion to this promo. It appears that this feud blew through its best stuff early on, and this was hardly the segment that would have sold the match between them that the previous two interactions did. At least Dynamite ended with something of note, as the cliffhanger conclusion of the show saw masked assailants attacking Jay White. Time will tell what any of it means, but Tony Khan has teased an exciting new era in AEW, and one can only imagine they may have something to do with it. The mask worn looked a lot like MJF's Devil mask, which he first wore at AEW's All Out 2022, where the group named The Firm helped him win the Casino Ladder match. MJF has worn the mask on multiple occasions since then, including at All In, and given White's comments against MJF earlier in the show, the AEW World Champ seems the obvious suspect. In fact, MJF seems a bit too obvious when you think about it, as if someone is trying to frame AEW's resident scumbag in order to put MJF off his game. Many on social media also pointed out that this masked man did not match the body type of MJF, so who else could be behind the attack on White and this new group? Some are speculating that the masked man could be Adam Cole, who is faking his injury, and that he is being assisted by the Kingdom and possibly Kyle O'Reilly. We know Cole was at the arena as he spoke about his injury earlier in the show, and while Britt Baker shared photos of Cole's injury, her choice of photos has come under scrutiny. Britt shared a photo of Cole with his foot wrapped up, which could be done to anyone without a leg injury, and while she shared a photo of a severely bruised foot, Cole's face was not in the image. For fairness, we should state that it is unlikely, as all reports about Cole's injury have stated that he is legitimately hurt, so the idea of this being faked should be taken as a stretch at best. Having Cole be revealed as the attacker would be quite the swerve, and also raise questions as to why he's trying to frame MJF, but who else could it be? Some have suggested that this person could be Jack Perry, who hasn't appeared for AEW since All In, which took place exactly 1 month prior to last night's Dynamite. Perhaps Perry received a month-long suspension from AEW for his backstage altercation, and this is AEW's way of reintroducing him. Although some have said it may be Mustafa Ali, who knows a thing or two about leading masked groups, that's not possible as he's currently out serving his non-compete clause with WWE. Despite appearing at NXT at the time of his release, Ali was under a main roster contract, meaning he won't be free to work until his 90-day clause expires on December 20th. But who do you think is behind the attack? Is Adam Cole framing his best friend? Is Jack Perry making a shocking return? Or is someone else behind all this? Give your predictions in the comments. More from Dynamite, as after being misted by Julia Hart on Collision, Willow Nightingale was in the mood for revenge, but this week's Dynamite was not her night. Instead, it was Hart who got the win, as the House of Black member continues to build momentum to her TBS title match at WrestleDream. The show also saw Orange Cassidy defeat Penta El Cerro Miedo, Matt Jackson, and Austin Gunn, giving Cassidy and Hook momentum heading into the four-way at WrestleDream. Don Callis and Konosuke Takeshita were in the ring for a promo before introducing the family's newest member, Sammy Guevara. The trio aired footage of a sneak attack by Takeshita on Kota Ibushi before the Spanish God issued words of warning for Chris Jericho ahead of a trios match at WrestleDream. The segment felt a lot like the promo we got on Rampage, and probably could have been relegated to a backstage vignette with Callis voicing over the Ibushi attack. There was nothing inherently wrong about the segment, it just didn't give fans anything we hadn't seen on Dynamite ahead of this weekend's six-man tag pitting the heels and Will Ospreay against Chris Jericho, Ibushi, and Kenny Omega. Mere days after capturing the AEW TNT Championship for real, Christian Cage was part of a sit-down interview with Jim Ross on Dynamite that also featured Darby Allin. The two will face off at WrestleDream this Sunday in a 2-out-of-3 falls match, and it wasn't long into the interview that Christian took aim at some dead relatives. Cage brought up how Darby Allin will be performing in his home city of Seattle for the show before mocking Allin's uncle for being dead. Cage then brought up Buddy Wayne, the deceased father of Nick Wayne, as well, because he was in that sort of mood to keep the cheap heat going. Darby Allin has plenty of reasons to bring the fight to Christian this weekend in Seattle, and we'll have to see who leaves with 2 victories to their name and the AEW TNT Championship. During a backstage segment, Blackpool Combat Club member Wheeler Yuta challenged Absolute Ricky Starks to a match at AEW's newest pay-per-view event, WrestleDream. AEW took no time, and it was made official via graphic later in the broadcast. Fightful Select reported that the match was in the works earlier in the day on Wednesday. It is the first encounter between the two wrestlers beyond both being participants in a lone battle royal in 2022. Former AEW World Trios champion Malakai Black finally revealed why he hasn't wrestled in a singles match in a while, and the truth behind his bad back. Malakai finally answered the question going through his Instagram story. He says,
"Something that I want to quickly address, and I understand that this is always done from a perspective of caring, so before I say anything, I appreciate the fact that people care and that it comes from a good place. But about a year ago or so, I made a video about rehabbing a back injury that I had. And the video shows the process, and I talk about overcoming that injury, strengthening my back, etc. And after the video was posted, people started running with this idea that, oh, he has a bad back and therefore A, B, or C, which is not the case at all. And for some reason that has found its way back. And again, the narrative is, well, he's not had singles matches, etc. because of he has a bad back, he nearly retired because of it, and none of these things are true. Why I'm not having singles matches, I don't know. I think it's because they wanted us to really run as the House of Black and do 6-mans. I was also not in 6-mans to hide said non-existing injury. Again, rest assured, I do not have a bad back, and the reason why I am at home right now is, well, due to a minor injury, which is I had a slight calf tear and a hyperextension in my knee, which is almost nursed back and almost ready to go back on the road, etc. So again, I appreciate the concern, but the reality is that I'm fine, and you will see me sooner rather than later. But again, I appreciate the concern.
It seems like Black's back is healthy and he wants to get back on the road as soon as possible. It's hard to believe that Malakai Black hasn't competed in a singles bout despite being a gifted in-ring talent. Nevertheless, Black's previous singles bout was back in May 2022. His last televised singles match was against Penta Oscuro nearly 500 days ago. Now, former WWE Women's Champion Liv Morgan has been out of action since July following an attack by Rhea Ripley, which many believe to be storyline related. However, it was reported that Morgan was dealing with a legitimate undisclosed injury, but that was never confirmed by Morgan or WWE until now. Morgan spoke with Muscle and Health and gave an update on her condition, where she says she's recovering from an injury. It took me a while to fully understand that proper fuel makes for better athletic performance. I know that's common sense, but to have the willpower to act on that at 2 a.m. when you've got a 4-hour drive to the next show is really difficult. The only places that are open are fast food outlets a lot of the time. I'm actually out injured right now, and aside from healing up, my focus has been on my nutrition, so it's been really exciting honing in on that. I want to come back in the very best shape of my life, so right now I'm eating clean, tons of fresh fruits and veggies. I'm basing my carb intake on the amount of physicality and energy I expend each day. I do believe life is about balance, though, so I still order a cheeky little dessert with dinner sometimes. Stay tuned as we continue to keep you updated on Morgan's condition and any news regarding her return. Next month, Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis will fight after a series of very personal attacks on social media, which included Dennis saying Paul's fiancée Nina Agdal resembles Edge. This week, British promoter Mams Taylor said that when Paul called him, he made it clear that he wants testing for the bout, whether it be from the USADA, VADA, or elsewhere. This got quite the reaction from Dennis, who called Paul's comment a scam and said Paul wants testing now because he's clean now, but claimed Paul has used substances in the past. Dennis also took a dig at WWE's wellness policy, mocking the idea that WWE tests regularly, and we'll have to see who stands tall when these two fight in Manchester. Now, Jade Cargill's arrival in WWE has sparked a ton of reactions from fans and those in the industry, and during an interview with the New York Post, Becky Lynch gave her 2 cents on her. She said, "I watch all the products, I think it's great. More women with more platforms. I think she has a lot of work to do when she gets here, but if she's willing to do that, just look at her, she's the star. It's more people for me to get in the ring with and kick their asses." In the interview, Lynch also discussed her own recent plans with WWE, saying there was full truth to recent reports that WWE changed her recent title match on Raw. Last week's match was supposed to see Lynch defend the NXT Women's title against Tegan Nox, who was replaced by Natalya, but now Nox will face the Man on next Monday's show. Cargill is the third notable name from AEW to sign with WWE, following Cody Rhodes and Brian Pillman Jr., and while many are happy for her, some AEW diehards are mad at her for jumping ship. This tribalism isn't exclusive to AEW, and on Twitter, Kenny Omega said it's embarrassing and shameful, and said that wrestlers wish each other the best when they embark on a new journey. Whether you're for or against Cargill signing with WWE, the news has taken the wrestling world by storm, with WWE's announcement getting over 850,000 likes in the first 24 hours across all official social media platforms. At one point, Jade Cargill's name was the #1 trend in the United States, so it's clear that WWE's newest superstar is already proving to be a topic of interest. Cargill's exit from AEW does leave quite the shoes to fill, and speculation is growing that Mercedes Moné could soon be All Elite and thrust into a similarly prominent position. The former IWGP Women's Champion had at one point been factored into plans for Forbidden Door, where she was set to face Saraya, a woman who Moné, of course, has history with. It was a move by Moné that forced Saraya to retire, though the Brit has made it clear she holds no grudge against Mercedes, who also appeared at AEW All In inside Wembley Stadium. Moné signed with New Japan earlier this year, but it is unclear how long she will remain under contract. And would you like to see her be All Elite? Sound off in the comments. Rob Van Dam was in action on last Saturday's episode of AEW Collision, where he teamed with FTW champion Hook to defeat Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange in his second AEW match. During the media call for the upcoming WrestleDream pay-per-view, AEW President Tony Khan spoke about RVD, stating that the Hall of Famer was a good partner for Hook and stated that he was happy to have RVD working with AEW on a case-by-case basis and has offered him the chance to return anytime. Earlier this year, just weeks after WWE WrestleMania 39, Grayson Waller competed in his final NXT match, losing to WWE NXT champion Carmelo Hayes. While a loss is never welcome, the future was bright for Waller regardless of the match outcome, as he was set to be drafted to SmackDown a few days later. Unfortunately for the loudmouthed young talent, during his match against Hayes, he broke his tibia, sending his immediate WWE plans into disarray. The rising WWE star spoke on this topic during a recent interview with Sporting News Australia. Waller told his fellow Aussies that he's operating at about 85% after breaking his leg at NXT Spring Breakin', and that recovering from the injury was incredibly difficult. However, Waller does see the silver lining, as he stated that due to his injury, he was able to introduce the Waller Effect television program, which has gotten him great buzz from the WWE universe. And we're ending today with Mustafa Ali, who was released last week. Fans were surprised to see him let go, as he had been regularly featured on NXT and had even been scheduled to appear on this week's Raw. Now the former superstar has taken to Twitter to make it clear his release will not be the end of his wrestling career, as he shared the booking email address for the Mustafa Ali World Tour. Ali will have to wait for his non-compete clause to expire before he wrestles, and one place he won't be competing is at NXT No Mercy this weekend, where he was supposed to face Dominic Mysterio. Instead, it'll be Trick Williams who challenges for the North American title, and in a tweet, Ali was pleased for Trick, saying that he deserves this opportunity. Ali has no ill will towards Williams for taking his spot at No Mercy, and we'll have to see what Ali does next when his world tour can officially begin.